You're thinking about starting Whole30? This video is for you because I am on day 30 of Whole30, and even though I'm not an expert, there is so much that I learned and I'm excited to share with you about this experience and honestly how it changed my life. So let me break it down. We will be talking about what the hell is Whole30, why would someone do this to themselves, how do you set yourself up for success. I have my 10 tips for making it through. And lastly, what do you do after day 30? Hint, you don't just eat all the foods that you were avoiding. I also have to mention, this is not a complete guide. I am not a dietitian or a health expert, so take this information, do your own research, create your own plan. I hope that it is helpful for you to make decisions for yourself. So with that, let's dive in. What is Whole30? It is an elimination diet. It is a way to learn how your body is reacting to different foods. The way that this happens is for 30 days, you limit yourself to not having, here's the list, no dairy, no sugar, no grains, including corn, no legumes, including soy, no alcohol, no additives, no fast or processed foods, no french fries, no chips, no treats, even if they're approved ingredients. There's also a couple other no's. There's no cheat days. If you cheat, quote unquote, you have to start over, and there's no weight checks. When this was created, the whole point was to help people create a diet for themselves, not just to give you this prescription of the perfect diet, because there is no perfect diet. It just depends on your body. So in order to do this well, it's really about listening to your body and your reactions. That's why they say don't weigh yourself, don't measure yourself, because it's not about losing weight. That's not the primary goal, although most people probably do lose weight. The primary goal is really to tune into your body and understand yourself a lot better. Why would someone do something like this? Well, if you have food sensitivities or this general discomfort and you're not sure where it's coming from, it could be from your food. It's just really hard to figure out which foods are affecting you, and this is a way to address all the most likely causes of discomfort because of food. Other reasons that you might do this is also just to change your mindset and relationship with food. This is something that I didn't plan for going into it, but because you are reading the ingredients label, because you're having to go grocery shopping for more foods, because you're having to do a lot more work, you're paying attention to what food you are putting into your body, you're paying attention to what you're cooking, and when you're with other people, there's just more attention going into it. So you automatically are going to be more mindful. I found myself creating new habits around food, and really, the reason to do Whole30 is to change your life. That's I know a very simplistic thing to say, and I know a lot goes into it, but I would say that Whole30 changed my life because a few months ago, I said to my friends who've done it, I could never do it. I don't have that level of self-control. I don't have, I'm just not capable of saying no to the things that I love. But not only did I finish Whole30, but I did it over Thanksgiving. I went to birthday parties. I went to dancing at clubs where there's alcohol. I went to the movie theater where I love popcorn. I did all these things that I told myself before doing this. I had to say yes to the treats. I had to say yes to the unhealthy foods. And it really taught me how to practice saying no and how to be thoughtful and intentional with what I'm putting into my body, because food is fuel. And now I think of it that way. So those are some of the reasons for why you might challenge yourself to do this. If you are someone who's feeling I don't know if I could, trust me, if you set your mind to it, you definitely can. Now for how to prepare for Whole30. This is something that I didn't really do. I just kind of jumped into it, and so the first few days I didn't really know what I could eat. I feel like I didn't eat enough because I didn't plan ahead. So I would say the first thing I would recommend is have accountability people in your life, people who can support you and cheer you on. They don't have to do it with you, to support you in checking in, asking you how it's going, and participating in some of your meals with you. This really helped me a lot especially the days where I was traveling. I had someone in my corner to kind of help me so I wasn't doing it by myself. The other thing I'd say, I wish I would have done more research before starting so that I had a plan going into it. I almost feel like it'd be better to do like a trial week where you're not going all in, but you're just trying some recipes to see how it goes before jumping in all the way. Some things that are helpful with a planning process, I put into my calendar, just as a task every day, the day of Whole30 it was, so that I could see my progress. There's something about the brain and like streaks and not wanting to like lose the momentum that after week 2, I was like, there's no way I'm gonna mess this up. So the second half was almost easier, but it also was nice to kind of check off that box and say, yes, I did it. Yes, I did it every single day. It seems silly, but it was really helpful. Also for planning, doing some meal planning and grocery shopping kind of at the front end to prepare yourself, especially at the beginning. The first week is probably the hardest. After that, you kind of get into this routine. The last thing I'd say that's really helpful is to have some kind of like tracking system or journal, because again, this isn't just about losing weight at the end, it's about how do you feel along the way. What are things that you're noticing? What are the cravings that you're having? What are the times of day that you're having it? This journal is going to be really helpful also for the reintroduction phase, which I'm heading into next week, because you're getting used to checking in on your body and like thinking about how you're feeling, which I don't know about you, but I don't do it that much. I think I was always living with this like discomfort and just kind of going with it. So that is something I would also recommend. So there are some brands that I fell in love with. The first is Primal Kitchen. They have sauces and dressings that are all made with whole ingredients. Again, we want to stay away from processed foods as much as possible, and sauces are technically processed foods, but Primal Kitchen does a really good job of using ingredients that you can recognize and that are accepted as Whole30. The other one that I found helpful is an app called Sift, S-I-F-T, and that one was helpful to read labels for certain foods that I was pretty sure were Whole30 acceptable, but I maybe was not entirely sure. Even some sausages that seemed like they might be Whole30 approved had some ingredients like dairy or things that surprised me that I just didn't realize. So having this app to just double check the ingredients and the label, I found really helpful. It's like $2.99 a month, but helpful to double check on those items that I wasn't completely sure about. Now for the fun part. These are my personal 10 tips for surviving Whole30. Number 1, meal prep as much of your food as possible as soon as possible. I found that for myself, when I'm hungry, I don't want to think about what I'm cooking. I don't want to prepare the food. I just want to have it ready. So either preparing meals or even when you get home from the grocery store, cutting up all the vegetables so that you can just throw them into a dish made a world of a difference. Number 2, always have snacks and have a variety. We now have like a snack shelf in the fridge with like apples, clementines, carrots, things that we can just grab, because if it's not easily accessible, then it's going to be tempting to fall away from Whole30 and grab other snacks and other things that are just easily accessible. I also would say it's important, this is number 3, to bring snacks with you when you leave the house. Something that I found, especially if I had like a few different things that I was running around doing, if I got hungry, I couldn't just go to a fast food restaurant to find a snack. So it's helpful for me to have those grab and go snacks just always with me so that I wasn't hungry and craving foods that I wasn't allowed to have. Number 4, when you travel, make sure that you do a lot of research. There's a lot of restaurants that don't accommodate this diet. Chipotle is one that for sure has a dish that you can build for yourself, just like greens, meat, guacamole, and the salsa that doesn't have corn is something you can have from Chipotle. But most of the restaurants, you just have to ask if you're getting like a plain meat, if they add any sugars, because a lot of times restaurants add sugars to things that we don't think should have sugar. So just do research before you travel, and don't feel bad calling restaurants to find out if they have anything that accommodates. Most people don't know what Whole30 is, but if you give them kind of the list of what you can have and like the basics of what you can't, you can usually find some places that will accommodate. Number 5, make sure that you communicate with family and friends, especially before events. I did Whole30 over Thanksgiving and a few different social gatherings, and there's always kind of that awkward moment at the beginning of like, hey, yeah, sorry, I can't eat most of these things, or just asking about how things were cooked. But over time, you just kind of get used to it. It's not a big deal. Yes, you are that friend who has all those dietary restrictions, but it's not forever. And if they are your good friends, they're not going to be upset with you for saying no to the drinks or no to the sweets. It's helpful too for you to know what's going to be available so that you could bring your own food. I brought like soup to a party I went to because I knew there's going to be all this delicious food, and so I had something that I could enjoy as well. Let's see. Number 6. Plan your meal time. It's really helpful if you're just not hungry. Make sure you know what you're having for breakfast and what you're having for lunch and what you're having for dinner and what you're having for your snacks, so that you don't get to that moment of hunger and you're like panicking and trying to figure out what to do. And I think for me, the tip number 7 is eat a lot. Like fill yourself up with like the veggies, especially because like you need a lot of fuel because you're not eating a lot of these other food groups. Have it be a variety and make sure that you're filling yourself up. It's not this diet where you're restricting your calories or how much you eat. Like eat till you're satisfied, and again, pay attention to the sensation of what does satisfied feel like? What is that sensation? A lot of times we like overeat or do other things that maybe don't sit well with us and we don't realize. Number 8, try new things. Honestly, because of how restricting this is, it's easy to just eat the same thing every day and get really bored. So when you hit that wall of like, take a look at that grocery list in the description and find other foods that maybe you haven't tried yet. My like discovery was I loved this butternut squash soup that I made, and that was always like a nice go-to that I've never made before. Our bodies also like variety, so it's not good if you're eating like the same vegetable every day, so try to like rotate through so that you're getting different nutrients. Number 8, whenever possible, make it fun. This is something that like, again, this is a challenge. Like Whole30 is a challenge. So if you're going into it thinking like, I'm gonna suffer, this is gonna suck, it probably will. But if you find ways to like make it enjoyable, for me, I tried to make my plates look nice, and I would take a photo of my plates whenever I remembered, just to kind of keep track of like, what are some of the different things that I ate, and making it look pretty was just something that I learned to enjoy doing. Just doing something to make it a fun experience, or dancing while you're cooking. I don't know, doing something to make it fun, I think is really important. Number 10 is something that I tried that you might hate, but I highly recommend. This is a little bit more of a challenge than a tip. I tried making breakfast without added seasonings or sauces, just so that I could taste the actual vegetables that I was eating. The first couple times it was kind of bland, obviously, because I'm so used to especially salt, but not putting any salt and tasting what the eggs taste like, tasting what the Brussels sprouts and the broccoli and like the natural flavors. It was surprising after a couple days of this no seasoning challenge how I could taste like the sweetness that was natural in these vegetables that really gets covered up by our desire to over sweeten things, to the point where I have a feeling that once I start reintroducing some of these foods, the salts and the sugars are probably going to be too much for me to handle, because I challenge myself to just try to learn to enjoy foods as they are. So that is my challenge. Let me know if you try it. Let me know how it goes and what you learned. I found it absolutely fascinating. Lastly, let's take a look at what happens after day 30. As I mentioned, today is day 30 of Whole30 for me, but that doesn't mean that tomorrow I'm gonna jump in and eat a bunch of sugar and dairy and all these things. A, I would feel really sick, and B, it would completely defeat the purpose of the learning about what foods are affecting my body. So now that you've eliminated all of these foods from your body for 30 days, basically detox your system, let's reintroduce things one at a time to see how it affects your body. But what does that look like? You reintroduce one food group at a time, and in between, you take 1 or 2 days to just do Whole30 again to kind of reset your body and see if you have any effects from the food that you tried. Now, it's also not like, let me binge sugar or binge dairy. It's adding a few things into your meals that have those food groups so that you can within reason, find out how it's affecting your body. If you eat a ton of sugar, chances are your body's just not gonna like it because you haven't had it in a while. I read a kind of a mixed bag of the order of doing things. So the order that I'm planning to do is least likely to negatively affect you to most likely to negatively affect you. So the first one is legumes, then non-gluten grains, which is like rice, oatmeal, corn, then dairy. And I saw a few places that separated dairy into like yogurt and milk and cheeses, because even a dairy sensitivity can be different among different dairies. Then gluten grain, then sugar, then alcohol. And again, between each of those, you're doing 2 days of Whole30. It's also really important that you're paying attention to how your body feels. The whole point of reintroduction is to kind of analyze the impact these foods are having on your body. So this is where having a journal is going to be really helpful. And keep in mind that the goal is, once you're done with reintroduction, create your own diet plan. It's to learn what foods affect your body, what foods make you feel really good, so that after you're done with your Whole30 and your reintroduction, you have a food guide that's unique to you and your needs. I will say that our food sensitivities also change over time. So what you learn from doing this the first time might be different from what you learn in a couple of years if you ever try to do it again. So just keep that in mind. Things change. I would say that for me, I am feeling mostly just really proud of myself for making it to day 30, for surviving Thanksgiving and these events, and really doing it for myself and like believing in myself. Being able to sit here and say, I did it, I didn't cheat. By the way, if you do cheat, you have to start over. So that's why this is so hard, but it's also why it's so good. Because for me, I have that all or nothing thinking, and when I know I just don't have an option to cheat or I have to start over, it really helped me stay focused. It helped me say no in those hard moments. And I feel empowered to make decisions about my food intake more thoughtfully and more intentionally. So now that you've heard all of these tips and my experience, are you ready to try Whole30? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. If you have questions, I'm happy to share more specific details about this experience. As I said, this isn't a full guide, it's just my experience. But I love not only hearing how things go, but being a cheerleader. Just know that whenever you decide to do Whole30 or do something like this, you've got this, you have what it takes, you have the capacity, you have the willpower to make it through 30 days plus reintroduction of taking care of yourself. You deserve it, and you will thank yourself when you are done. Good luck with your Whole30 journey.